Okay then guys, so this is a long awaited video. A lot of people have been asking for this, and actually I've had somebody contact me asking about MX7000 repairs. Two or three people now. So I thought it's time to get mine out of storage and actually have a little look at this and see what we can do, what we can work out. So this is literally almost like a barn find. You can see it's covered in dust. It's got sort of dust all along that bottom edge there, the top edge there, and I'm on shaky cam just to show you. You can see that the top is absolutely filthy, as is the back, and essentially it's been in multiple different storage units. It's been next to a table saw. It's been through the walls a little bit, but I bought this one very cheaply, and it had a fault when I bought it, and basically it will power on, or it did the last time I tried, and after about 20 minutes or so it will power off, and I believe it's due to failing capacitors. And the one I've been contacted about it won't power on at all, so I think the capacitors are so far out on that one that it won't even power up. So what I want to do is I'm going to film some of this out of order to how I wanted to do it, but because of the dust I'm going to give it a quick vacuum over. I'm going to get the back off and just dust inside, and then we'll see if it still powers on. So just bear with me on that and we will be back. So that's the set. Had a quick vacuum over front, back, top and sides, so it's a bit cleaner than it was. It's still obviously not perfect, but we won't worry about that till the full restore a bit later on. So what I want to look at now is let's just have a chat about this TV. It's been in storage. Oh god, I bought it, I would say I bought it maybe 2018. So that's, what's that now? Well, it's 2024 now, so 6 years ago. Wow, okay. So a little while ago. And I used it for maybe a month, but of course I didn't want to damage it any more than it already was with the fault that it had. So I stopped using it. Put it in storage in a garage I was renting. Then years later I got rid of that, so then it went in storage in my own garage in the house that I bought, and then from there it's gone into storage in my unit, and now it's here at my grand's house temporarily whilst we have a look at it. So looking at it, first of all, we've got the sticker on the base here, and I will bring you in for a quicker look at this sticker, but I didn't buy it. I bought it for, I think I bought it for £70, which didn't include a remote, and it was so cheap because of the fault. I don't think that was particularly cheap at the time, but it is what it is. But we can see this one is, you know, the gloss black version, and I might cut in quickly about the colours on that. But we can also see that this perforation here isn't cut out, and that would be for the surround sound module if it had it, which it doesn't. Or would it on this model? It would either be the surround sound module or it could be the SAT module. I have some AV9000s with the built-in satellite, and the perforation looks, or the cutout looks very similar to that. So let me, and we can see I've took the plug off of this, so it won't be passing any pat tests or plugging in anytime soon. But let me bring you in closer on the bottom now. So here we are a little bit closer looking at the bottom, and this is one of those sort of reusable cable ties which you need to push in a very specific way to get it to unlock, and that's really painful on my fingers, but it's unlocking. There we go. And that's what they would have used originally. That's a proper B&O1 for cable management of some description. This TV is interesting. When I got it, it came with a 2-pin plug on it because it had come from Europe. Now somebody will correct me. I might put a little comment note up to say exactly, but I think this came from the Netherlands, and I bought it from a I'll call him a European chap because I don't know exactly where he's from, but it was the same place, and he'd bought it or brought it with him by car all the way to Bristol University, and he was up in Clifton somewhere, and yeah, it was weird. He was still using like 2-pin European extension leads and all sorts of stuff, so very odd. But anyway, of course it's what is it saying here? 220, 240 volts, 50 hertz, which is what we use in the UK as well. Hopefully you can see this label here, and we can see the item number, the serial number, and the type number. The later ones usually say B04 on the end to suggest that they are the B04 models. They wouldn't have come with a Beolink 1000. This one doesn't, so that's kind of interesting. The other interesting thing is it must be a later one, because you can get to the service menu from the remote. You don't need to take the back off to get to the service mode. So it's not an early one, but it's obviously not a late one. And based on the serial number, you'll be able to tell the year. So we'll have a look at that in a bit. Let me just spin in a bit quicker to the connections here. So here we are looking at the connections. We've got PowerLink 1, PowerLink 2, audio aux link, B&O stand, AV2, AV1, and SVHS, S-video. And then the TV aerial socket there. And I'm just going to see, yeah, mine doesn't have it. Some of the later ones, and if anybody out there, check please if your MX7000, if you have one, just above it, look for a perforation. And if the perforation is there but not cut out, then you don't have it. But if you have like a little headphone socket, then it means that it's got the set-top box controller in it. And I am looking for a set-top box module. So I would happily discuss that with anybody that has one. And just look for that sort of 3.5mm jack there. It's not a headphone jack, looks like one, but it isn't. And that's for the set-top box controller. But if we look back at the connections here, for those not familiar with B&O, PowerLink 1, PowerLink 2, they're actually identical. They carry left and right audio, and that would be for external speakers which are amplified, what they call the BO Lab speaker. The audio aux link allows it to connect to a hi-fi appliance of some description. You could use like a BO Center 9000 or a BO Center 9500, something like that, because that actually has the same link connector. Or what you should be able to do also is use a 1611 converter, and you can convert that to Masterlink and potentially connect to other appliances via the Masterlink system. It's not something I've tried on this, but it's something I will try at some point. The stand, of course, is for the motorized stand, which I do not have. Both SCART sockets should be RGB compliant, I believe. And then, of course, you've got the manual S-video, which can all be programmed in menu. Okay, so we're just going to have a go at unscrewing and removing the back now. I'm just going to use some electrical screwdrivers here because that's what I've got. But if we have a look at this, this is actually, and I've seen these called some odd things. I've seen them called the star-shaped Allen, star-shaped hex. Well, that's not what it is at all. It's Torx. And this particular one is, hopefully if you can see that, it's T20. So you need a Torx 20. And you've got one screw down here in this bottom hand corner. So that would be one. And there will be another one in that other bottom corner. And then they're in the top left and the top right hand corner. So I'll just show that quickly. And actually I just want to show this. When I undo this, you'll notice it comes out. And then it just sort of doesn't really do anything. And you can see it's loose. Yep, it's loose. But it's sort of stuck in the case. And that's how it's designed. That's what they call captive nuts or captive screws. And it's to stop them falling out and stop you losing them. So please don't force them out of the case, because that's what they're designed to do. Okay then, so that is all for sort of nuts, screws, whatever you want to call them, bolts, loose. So I think this should just pull off. And yep, there it is. Now, obviously, don't be stupid, don't pull it at an angle. There's some very brittle stuff here, which is called the neck of the tube and the neck board. So you just want to pull it away straight and carefully. Don't let it drop. Just keep going until you clear. And there we go, and we'll just remove that. Okay. So here we are looking a little bit closer at the tube now. And you can see the reason I didn't want to start this up is there's quite a bit of wood dust on here. So I just want to, again, go over that with a brush, just clean that up a little bit. And I can't even try and turn it on because I haven't brought a remote with me. So that was a bit of a whoops. But what we can do is we can have a little look at the label for the tube, which is a Phillips tube. I knew that anyway, B&O don't make tubes. For anybody that doesn't know, throughout the 90s and 2000s they used Phillips tubes for CRTs, they used Samsung LCDs for the Beovision 6s, and they used Panasonic Industrial Plasma for the Beovision 4s, so just for reference there. That's the set now vacuumed and dusted with a brush, and because it hasn't been plugged in for years I'm not too worried about it, but had you have had this plugged in say in the last week, whatever you do, don't start touching around here because it could hold thousands of volts. We'll get into that a bit more later, but seriously, if you don't know what you're doing with CRTs, you shouldn't be touching them because they're dangerous. They are really dangerous. But that aside, you can see I've managed to get most of the dust off now. I'm a lot happier with how it's looking. And let's come in for a closer look at the tube label. So here we are having a little look at the tube label. And as I said, we can see this is a Philips display. And it says Philips display components. We've got a serial number here. And we've got a part number. So let me just pull, I believe, it's interesting this. Yeah, it's got a dual degaussing coil, which is what this is here. So I'm just going to pop that out if I can, which I can. And then we can just see the part number there. So we can see it's an A66EAK552X01. 66 there stands for 66 centimeters because it's metric, European. And that would be the equivalent of a 28-inch tube, I believe. You can do the maths. I'll put a note on this. But if you needed to replace the tube, or if you wanted to look anything up, and we will need to momentarily, that part number is what's important. Okay? This is Dave in Edit, just chatting about the tube information now. So I said that it was important to know it, and this website here is called tubular.atomized.org, and this is where you can look up the specs of the tube. So we're going to go for A66EAK, and then I will probably try a 5. Yeah, so I'll put the whole number in for the sake of it, just on the off chance it has it, which I know it doesn't, which is 552X01. So we can't find that tube on this particular index, so we just have to keep backing it up till we get something meaningful. So we've got a 50, the X there, and a 51X. So we'll try the 50. And we can see it saying, yeah, this is a European tube, 66 viewable, which is what we know. And then the information that we want is we want the neck adapter, which it turns out is CR23. We want the heater voltage, which is 6.3, and then the G1, which is 50. And if this, obviously I would hope this index can be improved over the years. If this tube was dead, it may show us a replacement substitute tube, but in this case it doesn't show that. So that's the information we need, and we can take that to now go and do a health check on the tube. I just want to have a quick look at the neck board, which is what this is, and I believe it's board 3 in the diagrams, which I will put up at some point. But this TV is interesting. It's very different to the arcade monitors I've been working on, and different to most basic TVs actually, because you'll see here we've got focus and we've got G2, and these are adjustable potentiometers. And if I look at the back here, how are we looking on the camera? Okay, so this is the anode wire here going up to the top of the tube, and it loops round and it comes in, it goes into there, and then it comes off of there, and then it goes back to wherever the flyback is, or the high voltage transformer, whatever you want to call it, the LOPT. Usually those potentiometers are actually on the flyback, but because of this compact design, they've decided to go with a specific flyback that allows those to be remote. They're allowed to be removed, shall we say. So it's an interesting point. Now, if we were looking at this to troubleshoot, we would be looking under a magnifying glass here to see are there any cracks on the neck board or any cracks on the solder joints on the neck socket, any cracks or any heat soak on wherever the transistors are, which there's one here, for example, and there's one there, and there'll be one over there somewhere. And we'll be looking for all of that, and all of that will get reflowed in the repair, but for now I don't care about any of that because I don't see that as being an issue. So what I want to do is, like I say, I'm recording this out of order, so I apologise, but what I want to do is put the CRT tester on it and just see what life it thinks the tube has. And this is something I would do early on in my assessment of any TV I'm going to repair, because you'd have to discuss with the customer and say, well, the tube is basically toast anyway, so it's not worth spending the money on to repair. So let's have a look at how we would do that. So in order to test the tube, we need to connect to the neck of the tube. But of course the neck board is in the way. So what I need to do is just remove it. Now, sometimes they can be glued on, and what you would be looking for is looking to see, is there a lump of silicone or anything like that holding it to the tube? And I am not seeing anything like that, so I don't believe it's glued. So what we will be looking to do is just pull it squarely away from the tube carefully, and we'll do that just by wiggling it, and I'm just keeping an eye on it. I can see it's coming. Yep, there it goes. There you go. Okay, I'm just going to be very gentle and just drop that neck board down. And this is the neck of the tube, and we can see this one is obviously very dusty. It does look very, very dirty. But what I'll do is I will just dust over that quickly because I don't want any debris getting in the way, and we'll go from there. Just come in for a slightly different angle just to show you this. If you're not familiar, this is the deflection coil. And there's windings here. You've got horizontal deflection, vertical deflection, and that's what steers the beam to the screen. And you can see that you've got some sort of mounts, this sort of propping it off of the screen, and you've got a little screw here which is what clamps it to the neck, and a combination of that is what keeps it where it needs to be. Now if you had some purity issues, it might be that it's not rammed up close enough to the tube, or if you had some sort of blurriness on one side than the other, it might be that it's not quite aligned or what have you. Or certainly if the picture isn't straight, normally you would loosen that off and twist that either left or right depending on what you need. Now the interesting thing is normally arcade monitors, old TVs, that sort of thing, they have what they call purity rings and convergence rings. These later Philips tubes don't have them. You'll notice there's no sort of like little tabs to pull around here. And this is from factory designed fixed convergence. So if it turns out that the convergence is off, which inevitably it probably is, there's nothing we can do about it because it doesn't have convergence rings. Same with purity really. If it turned out that the purity is not great, probably wouldn't want to loosen that and try and pull that about too much because it's designed from factory. These were mass-produced tubes, mass-produced with this, and it was all sort of calibrated on some funky machine, and these are fixed magnet. So yeah, we unfortunately will only be able to work with what we've got on this, and we won't be able to do convergence adjustments. Okay, so now what we will do is I will flick to my laptop in Edit and discuss about the part number, looking it up, how we find out what neck adapter it is and what have you, and then we will be back. What we've got here then, guys, is the B&K 470 CRT tester and rejuvenator, and I've looked up and probably edited in how you look up about the neck adapter, and it turns out this is a CR23, and this is my original B&K 23 adapter. And it came with the tester and it worked fine, and then one day it didn't. So that was really annoying because it was the day I wanted to use it. but I think it was Buffett in America, Buffett the arcade guy or something like that. Real stand-up guy. I've ordered a couple of adapters from him. I haven't even tested the other ones, but I ended up ordering a replacement from him. It was funny, he emailed me saying, do you need one, because it's quite common? And I said, no, I don't need one, because I've got one. And then sod's law, the bloody thing stopped working. So he sent me a made-up replacement adapter, which works perfectly. And what we will do is we will come over to the tester and go through that. So I know it's fresh every time I use this thing, because I don't use it that often, but we'll just run through it. I've done a video on how this works anyway. But you want to make sure that all of your dials are anti-clockwise. So see, that's not all the way down. So you just want to make sure they're all the way down, except for that one, ignore that one. All the way down. Red, black and white to start off with. We're in the power off at the moment here. And we want to set the heater range. Now, I've looked this up, it says 6.3. So we'll go with the 4 to 7 range, go up to the set heater. And what are we starting off at? It thinks we're starting off at something. But conveniently, there are heaters already on this, or, you know, already on the gauge. And 6.3 is one of the highlighted ones. So we will go to 6.3-ish, and I have neck glow, which is good. Then you want to check for leakages, it's saying, which is heater. Yeah, so we're checking for heater leakages. Now, interestingly, I wouldn't say that's exactly on 0, but it's not moving, so it could be that my gauge is a little bit out. I haven't calibrated this recently, but I would if I was, of course, doing it for a customer. We'll check for G1 leakages. Gauge isn't moving, which is good. Set your G1 voltage. Now I think this is meant to be 50. Yes, 50 volts for this tester. So we will, where the hell's G1? Oh, I see, it's the bottom one, okay. Okay, 50 is about there. So that's G1. Set your G2s, which we are on red, and we want to go to 1 division. What is that? Oh, hang on, here we go. Okay. And we'll say that's roughly right. And we'll say that's roughly right. I'll tweak them a bit in a minute. And then we can read emissions. So let's see. Oh, look at that. Saying this tube is very good. Yep, that seems to suggest it's very, very good. So I will just tweak my G2s a bit better. And sorry, I'm going to have to come in closer because my eyes are terrible these days. I just can't see. Can't see how close I am to that, to be quite honest. Okay, so I just tweaked it a little bit there, and yeah, we can see that's showing is very, very good on the blue. We're at 14, whatever that means. 13 on the green. Ooh, just over 14 on the red. So that's suggesting this is exceptionally good. Set color tracking. So what we do is we go to that, and we bring this up, and you want to bring it up to the line, which is about there. And yeah, I'll bring that. Yeah, I think that's right. So it looks like blue and red are pretty much tracking bang on. Green, on the other hand, that's quite a dip. Like, that's way off the tracking. So it would suggest that the green on this is maybe not as strong. Now what you could do is do a clean and balance. I probably won't do that till I've calibrated my tester again. But that's what that would suggest. If we go back to the emissions, Was green the lowest? 12. About 14. About 14. Yeah, so the emissions on the green gun are a little bit low, and when you go to the colour tracking, we can see that the green is tracking a lot less than the blue and the red. So this might be a good example where you would do a clean and balance just to try and get the green up and get it all tracking nicely. And that is something, because it's my own tube, that's something I'm probably just going to do, to be honest. But anyway, we can see this tube is testing really, really good. I'm really, really pleased. So this is well worth restoring and hopefully getting many more years use out of. So I just want to show how to safely discharge the tube. Now obviously it's a bit silly because this hasn't been plugged in years, but it also isn't silly because the day you don't do it will be the day you'll regret it. So we've got a high voltage discharge probe here, which has got leads for a multimeter if you need them to check the voltage when it's live. We won't be doing that. And then you've got a ground connector. So we will be connecting to the spring here, which goes to the DAG ground. And I haven't got quite enough grip to go over the actual body of the spring, but I'm definitely on there, and that's touching the ground of the tube and the metal casing and all the rest of it. So one hand in my pocket or behind my back, never have two hands available, and then we're just going to work our way under this. There I am, and I'm just touching the metal clip that's in there, and I can see, or I can feel that I've made a good connection with that. There's no spark, there's no bang, so there's no charge in this tube. So I can now safely remove the anode cable, or the anode cup. Well, I think this one probably hasn't ever been off the tube. We can see when I turn this around, see there's a little bit of red here, and that's actually taken the coating there from the tube with it, which is a great shame, but it's not world ending. What we will do is we will put lots of dielectric grease on that when that goes back on, to stop any nasty potential spark, and seal that up how it should be. So with that removed, we can now just, hopefully, he says, pop that out of the clip, and we'll be ready to remove the boards. Try my best to get a good angle on this. Hopefully you can see there's like this little plastic lever here. There's one on each side, and you just want to lift it gently and pull the board. See, it's released, and then if it clicked home, it snaps back down. So you just want to pull and release, and then I'll do the other side. And hopefully, I think the whole thing just slides out. So I'll adjust the camera so we can see that. Yep, so here we go, you can see it just pulls out. Now obviously there's loads of cables here, so we have to be a bit careful. I will pull it so far and see what happens. Now I think, is there a second clasp? Yes. Yes, there is. That's nice. So it can only pull so far before it locks again, which is really clever actually. And then you would just lift, release, lift. It says lift, release. There we go. And then it will come out again. And that is the whole board set. Free of that, but of course we can see all of the cables are all still connected, so I will just pull that from there, and I think I'm going to have to do the same here. Just gently drop those down, and then we're close. Now what is catching is on the neck board the dag ground, which is actually a spade connector, so that can come off of there. And then what else is catching? Actually, doesn't look too bad. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. What is catching is the power cable, which I'm not too sure how you would get that out. Whether it's got some sort of way of getting that out. It does look like there could be a connector on there, so I will just move the camera and we'll have a look. Yeah, that to me looks like that's a connector that can be pulled, and sure enough it can, and it's keyed, so we don't need to worry too much about that. So that's that. And we're very close really to this. I'll undo this one as well up here. Yeah, so I'm really pleased with how far out I can pull that now. Let me just bring the camera around for you to see. So you can see there the board set fully pulled out. And what I want to do before I finish for the day is just see if I can find which is the power board. It's relatively obvious, isn't it? It's going to be the bottom one. It's going to be the heavy one with everything on it. So let me see if I can just twist this round. That. And what I want to do is just shine some light on this. Move the camera forward a little bit. And here we go. So this bottom board here is the power board, and we've got the, I don't know what that is. That looks interesting, doesn't it? Like a little cable tie to hold that on. But anyway, we've got the degaussing coil, which is that, which I think can just pull out, which is good. And that won't be directional, it's just AC, so we don't need to worry about that. But if we are worried about it, the sort of open side of the pins, as in, well, they're both open sides, aren't they really? But the side with the sort of clicky bit of the pin on goes to the right. So that's that. And we can now see this power board for the first time. So the fun part now begins. How do we disassemble this without damaging anything? It's quite clever how it works. It looks like it's got cable tie things to hold it all together, and it's hinged. There's a couple of screws there, and then I think that will probably lift up, and then we should be able to get to seeing that board. And it looks like a couple of screws hold the board to the sort of cage assembly, and then that will pull out. So let's, for fun, don't quite know what that screw's doing, but let's for fun just pull these two end screws and see if that does indeed lift up. This is extra fun because they're Torx, they're T10s in this particular example. So I switched over to the T10 driver, and we'll just pull these two screws. And nothing, because it's actually behind this plastic. So just off camera there, I've been playing about with it for a little while, and I've just sussed it. There is a screw in the middle that also needs to come out, which is again whatever that Torx was now. What was it we said? T10 was it? Yeah, it's T10. So all three of those screws are the same length. So you had the one at the bottom there, one at the bottom there, one in the middle there. That loosens off this plate. Then these side bits, and I remember reading about this a long time ago, they're almost like wings. They can just fold away somehow. And there was a clip here, which clipped into the panel. So I loosened that clip on both sides, just by hand. You just sort of gently push and prise. And it's the same with the top here. You hopefully, can you just see that? Can you see that sort of thing? That clipped into there, and I just popped those out. And by popping off both side wings and removing that screw, and then this here was just to sort of gently prise up and push up to remove it from this plate. And now this plate is loose. Now this wire here is for the deflection coil, and it's very dusty, but it's yellow on the left and red on the right, just in case it isn't keyed. And I will just gently remove that, and yes, it is actually keyed. That will be important later. We'll check something on that, but we'll ignore that for now. But now with that wire out of the way, we've got this wire in this clip, which I will just try and open up and get out. Might be easier said than done, but anyway, it's going to be a keyed wire, and it's that little sort of white wire there goes to the left connector. So I will just pull that up, and you want to just wiggle it because these haven't moved in a long time to get them to loosen. And what are we up against now? We've got this funny cable tie thing for that cage, which just pulls it with it. Interesting plastic cage. And there is a wire that's sort of going into this little plastic thing on the back here, just holding it. And I know people will be screaming at me, you can use a Bic pen, you can use obviously pliers, but if you use like an empty Bic, it can squeeze it and pop that. But anyway, that side, I could actually just untwist that and pull the cable out of that little holder, and there we go. We're now all nice and loosey-goosey. So I will probably move some stuff out the way, but obviously the interesting part that we're trying to look at is the main board. So hopefully that's mostly in shot there. Yeah, hopefully mostly. Let me hold the light. So, lots of capacitors, and I'm also seeing a reefer cap. Oh man, Adrian's Digital Basement would be proud. That would take some interesting research then. So there's a reefer cap in the power supply there, and they're known to always go bang in some way in a catastrophic fashion. So that needs to be pulled. What can I see? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 electrolytic capacitors that I can see. But I was reading that there was like 100 capacitors on this board. So I wonder if a lot of them are ceramics there. But until we get the whole board out to have a closer look at it, we won't know. But I'll probably leave it where it is for tonight. Can I see any bulging caps? The answer is currently no. Doesn't mean they haven't leaked. Doesn't mean they're not leaking from the underside or anything like that. So, yeah, we need to very carefully disconnect all of these wires from this board, and then pull the board. And I'm expecting probably a couple of screws there might just do it to get it out, but we will have to be very careful on all this, and I'll disconnect the wires from this cage so I can pull this fully out the way and give me better access. So yeah, that bottom board there is the power supply board. You can see maybe just that black thing there is the flyback, and it's quite dusty. It's definitely had a few hours on it, this one. But of course the tube is reading good, so that's what counts. So what we'll do then is we'll leave it here for today, and I'll come back later in the week and we'll see how we get on. It's now the day after what you've just seen, and I'm back to it, and where we are at is I really need to pull this board cage now from the tube. so that we can get a proper look at it. So there's lots of different wires that are still attached. So I'm going to film that for you guys, but also for me, so I know where they go. And let's bring the camera in and we'll start unplugging things. So looking at this little board here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 connections on this board, and they all look to be keyed. So we'll go from the top down, and you just want to wiggle these gently, and yeah, we can see that one is keyed on the sides. That one is again keyed on the sides, as is that one, I suppose. Hopefully you can see this. Yep. Oh, actually that one's a bit different. It's keyed on the top. Now technically that would probably plug in that one up there, I suppose. Let's try it. Yeah. So the thin wires are in the top left, and the thicker wires there are in the lower right. Then we have this one, which is keyed on the sides. This one is an interesting little connector. And that one probably is keyed. It's just an odd style. But the two white wires with the black connector go to that one there. And then we've got another small one, which looks eerily similar to that. But you'll know the difference because that one is cable tied in with the other looms. And then these, I'm worried these look the same. All white cables, and are these all white cables as well? Yes, they're the same connector as well. Are they the same amount of wires as well? Yeah, so you'll have to be very careful with those. That they are identical and they're next to one another, but obviously as you can see the orientation of the cable there, they're in a cable tie, so as long as you don't muck about with them too much and you make sure that they go in as per, you shouldn't have any issues there. So I'm just going to tuck that loom up out the way. And what else have we got going on here? This wire for the neck board is loose anyway, and now I think this one is connected to the cage, so I don't particularly care about that. So I'm just going to actually pop the neck board onto the cage. Just see where we are, what we've got. So that's the diagram from the neck board, so that's already disconnected. So I think it's just, that's the anode cable. Tuck that one in. So I think it's just these connectors up here. So just move the camera around. So I apologise that it's a bit messy to see this, but obviously there's wires everywhere. So it looks like we've got a little all black cable here, which is keyed at the top. Is it keyed on the top? No, it's keyed on the sides on that one. And then we've got this larger all black connector. Which has side keys as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually see how easy I can remove this a second. Okay, so this cable here, it goes right up to the top of the tube, so I can just tuck that one out of the way, and that's for the IR sensor and little LED assembly, I think, on the top there. It even says on the board IR receiver. So I think this is the last of the cables now. Now, what I am worried about is if this one is very similar to this one. I'm just going to untuck that cable from there. get that out of my way. And this one is keyed on the side. It's different because it's 3 pins. Like I say, the one I'm worried about is this 2-pin one, but actually I think that stays on the assembly. So let's go for this other 3-pin one. And again, this is going to be horrible because they look the same. I wonder, does it really matter? Because they're probably, for the amplifiers, looking at it. So if you got them round the wrong way, your left might be left, your right might be right. But how this cable is sort of sitting, like that, that's the orientation they go in. So again, if you're careful, you should be okay with that. If I had some tape or what have you, I might just put a little bit of tape on one and then just make a mental note that the taped one is the top one. That would be a good way of sort of denoting which is which. So, how are we doing? We're doing very well. That's it. Just move that cable out of the way. And that's the whole cage assembly now loose from the tube. So a label fell off of something somewhere, which doesn't mean a lot. Let's have a look. What is it? It's a Beardo part number. So I don't know what that fell off at one point, but there we go. Just looking at the inside of the cavity where it once was now, you can see there is a lot of dust in it. That wouldn't have been me, that's just historical dust. So we can get in there with the vacuum and the brush and some wet wipes and clean all of that area up in good time. I probably won't worry about that right now, because what I want to do is I want to have a look at this cage. So let me stop filming, get the TV off the table, which is easier said than done because it's heavy, and then we can have a focus on the cage. Here's the cage now completely removed from the CRT. And I might be able to show you a little bit better these wings now. This one here, look, you can see I've clicked it in. Oh, actually the camera can't quite see that, hang on. Let's try that again. This one here is clicked in, and you can see now hopefully just how that click works. It's just a clasp, push down, flick out, and the wing just folds out, which is really helpful actually. So we will do that on both sides. But what I also want to do is, if I can, remove this neck board. I'm just looking at this, and we have this connector here, which should just pull out, hopefully. Yep, and that is indeed keyed. And then we've got the anode wire, which won't be being removed anytime soon. And this loom, which is already removed on the other side. So I'll just unravel that. And that's, I think, as loose as that's going to get. Because we can't do anything about that anode cable unless we... what we could do is we could remove the focus wire. Quite how that removes, I don't know if I will attempt that. But we could remove the focus wire, and then it looks like that just clips out of the board. And those solder points, is that for something else? Nope, they're part of that. So if we want to declip this from the board, we'll have to desolder that there, which I will be doing anyway, so we can clean underneath all of that, because lots of dust. Can you see the dust? Lots and lots of dust. Sorry, so I don't know if that was off camera there. These pins here are part of that board, so that would have to be desoldered to declick that. And like I say, you could potentially remove that focus wire, but I don't quite know how that works, and I certainly don't want to damage it. Yeah, might leave that, but there we go. So you can see this is absolutely filthy, so we'll be getting to all of that. And with the cage, of course, we can declip this other side. There we go, and then that one just folds out as well. Just get that cable out of the way. and that's pretty much where it is. Of course, the interesting thing is the poppers on this metal bit, whether they're easy to remove or not, I don't know. Yes, they should be. Yeah, there we go. So they just oh, try and put a bit of light on it. They just sort of squeeze in a little bit and pop out, so that I can remove the wings from this cage piece. And hopefully, other than that, that one, oh yeah, that one's nice and easy to remove as well. It's just a little pop, squeeze and pop. Yep, and that's that removed. And that's given us really good access now. We'll just pull that wire out of the way. And look at that. It's all folded down. I will probably just try and pull that plastic bit off. I need to remember to obviously put that back in that way, just so that that's out of my way. And the back, look at that, the back also folds down as well. And wow, okay, let me just twist this a little bit. Have a look at that. the dust and the heat scorching from the flyback. That's so basically, because these generate high voltage, it attracts dust. And yeah, just look at that. That's quite fun. But yeah, I can lay that down, and you literally have a fully split out cage. Let me just tiddle the camera down a little bit. Yeah, that's really quite cool. Oops, sorry about that. That's really quite cool. So that will enable me to start working on these boards. Obviously, to solder on this power board here, it's going to have to pull out, and there are quite a few different looms attached to it as well. So, in no particular order, we've got this little white 2-pin one here. We've got this slightly larger one, which again I can see it is keyed, and that's 4 pins, and I think the one to its side here is more pins. It's really hard to try and do when the camera's in the way. Yeah, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then the one behind it is 3 pins, and the one behind that, the big one, is lots of pins. So actually they're all a unique number of pins, and that is just tucked in at the top there, just lifts off. And then on this side we've got, sorry about the cables being in the way there, we've got a larger pinned one, which just pull out, and then a smaller pinned one. Yep, and that is that whole loom, I think, detached. Yes, I'm just going to put that wing off to the back as well, so that's out of the way. I think that's this whole board loose. Now I've already taken the screws out, so I'm hoping, or have I missed one? Look at that, I missed one. So holding this board then is 3 screws, 1, 2, 3. Let's just grab that one. And when it was in the TV, I couldn't see that, it was too dark, there was too much going on. So I just moved that one out of the way. Let's try that again. Oh, no, I think I've missed one in the middle somewhere. I'm just going to have to move the camera. See if I can see. Shine a bit of light on it. Might just stand up for this. Hang on. I think there's a screw from the underside holding that heatsink, which of course I've never turned it over before, so I don't know. There is a screw, but it's not going into this board, so why is this not? Oh, well, there we go. Oh, that's really heavy because of that flyback. So that is the board there. and this is the one we're going to start working on. So what I'll do now is just move the cage assembly gently over to one side, and we'll have a proper look at this. Here is that main power board now in all its glory, with the neck board, because I don't really want to detach it if I don't have to, and obviously that silly plastic bit of the assembly. So what I think we will do is I will have to plug in the microscope, and we can have a little look at the underside of it. That board is very flexible, very flimsy. So you could see how you could get some broken joints, dry joints, what have you. Of course, like I say, this set did work, so well, work with an intermittent fault. So I'm not sure if I'll see too many dry joints, but we will see. And if we have a look at it now, we can see the whole board. If we just do a spot check, so on this side we've got 1, 2, 3. I think I'm only seeing 20 electrolytics, plus the reefer that we really need to get out. So that's not as bad as I was thinking. So what we can do is we can have a look, and hopefully I can get those 20 out today. Okay, so I've got the scope out now, and we're just going to have a quick look. I'm looking at the flyback pins here, and obviously it's dusty. You know, whole thing is dusty, but pin 1 looks fine. Obviously Fluxy will reflow and clean all this up. You'll see the difference. Pin 2 looks like a bit of a blob, that one, doesn't it? But it looks fine. Pin 3, that looks a bit thin, but not unreasonable. Not seeing, am I seeing cracking on that? Not extreme, but you can see a bit of a ring, which sort of symbolises that that's getting a bit tired. 4 doesn't look too bad. 5 doesn't look too bad. 6 looks fine. 7 looks fine. There is pitting in it, which sort of shows it's maybe an old solder joint now, which of course it is. 8. It looks okay. I mean, it doesn't look the best soldering in the world, does it? But 9 doesn't look too bad. 10 doesn't look too bad, but that's kind of interesting. Look at that scratching on the bottom there. Kind of looks like somebody's had a bit of a go at that at some point. Of course, we know that there's a repair sticker on this, so maybe it had a flyback. Who knows? Yeah, 11 doesn't look terrible. 12 doesn't look terrible. So the pins on the flyback look okay. What else do we want to check whilst we are here? So we've got the power side. We could check the power connector pins. Try and get that in focus. Again, not the cleanest job in the world, is it? But doesn't look terrible. That looks a bit thin, but not terrible. Again, that doesn't look too bad. Let's have a look at the pins on this little transformer here. Yeah, doesn't look too terrible. So I'm not going to bore you with this. I will let's have a look at the pins on this capacitor here. This big one. Yeah. Not terrible. And then we've got this big boy did that? I imagined that. We've got this big boy transformer here, and It looks quite fluxy, doesn't it? Looks like maybe somebody had a bit of a play around with this before. So you never know, maybe the pins on this one works loose at some point. But we'll go over and clean this board as good as we can, because that just looks pretty crummy. So we'll get all this sort of flux residue off of it and clean it as best as we can. And I'll go over it with a magnifying glass, and because I tend to find that a little bit better than this sometimes, and see if there's anything obvious, and then I'll bring that up on the scope if need be. But what I want to do before we get into that now is just start pulling. Can I get to my finger? Yeah, what's this? Well, it doesn't look fantastic, does it? But it doesn't look like there's any cracked joints, so that we've seen so far at least. Which sort of tends to go towards my theory that it's probably caps, but we will find out. So what we will do is coming off of the scope now, we will take those 20 caps, pull those out, and see what all the values are, spreadsheet all of that up, test them, go from there. I'll have to do that off camera because it is a really tedious process, but essentially what we do is we can use the soldering iron to add a little bit of fresh solder to the pads of all of the capacitors, and then I use my desoldering station, which is a gun. Let me just get that for you. It's just off to the side here. And we just use that to go over the pad, pull the trigger, wiggle it, and it will suck, it will vacuum up the solder off of the pad and allow all of the capacitors to drop out. So we'll go ahead and do that. I've shown it in most of my other videos, so go and have a look at those if need be. And once all the caps are off, you can see, hopefully you can see, there's a crazy amount of dust all over this, and then we can start the cleaning process. Here's a picture of the board now, the power supply board, and you can see that all the capacitors are removed now. The flyback is also removed, and that was to allow me to gain access around it and clean all that dust off, all that black soot. And I haven't done a proper cleaning job here, this is just a first pass, but I'm happy enough with how it's looking at the moment, and I'm going to move on to the next set of boards, and then when it comes to actually putting in the capacitors, I'll give it a clean then. I've got to do reflow work anyway, so I'll clean it properly when I do that. Okay, boys and girls, so it's a new day. Not a lot of footage from yesterday, but made some good progress. We can see it off to the left here. We've got all the old capacitors now. I can see some of them have been replaced with Philips. That's good. That's a good brand. So that shows that, you know, they did a good job, that service company. Found this little guy, an old row capacitor, and I'm not going to try and pronounce the type that this is. I'll just put it as a comment on the screen. But look at it. It's center pin positive with a 3-pin negative on the exterior. So really odd thing. You can still buy them on eBay, but I can't find a 100 UF, whatever it is, 250 volt one on eBay. So somebody was saying you can rip this tri-pin thing off and resolder to that with a conventional capacitor, or you could just get a conventional capacitor and I suppose use jumper pins, which is probably what I'm going to end up having to do. Interesting design, never seen that before. Maybe that's just because I'm too young or whatever, but hey, it is what it is. So that's all that done. And the board is cleaning up quite nicely. I will have put a picture in of the board, but just for reference, I'll just grab it here. This is what the board is currently looking like. Flyback is off just so I could get in there and clean all the dust out properly. It's looking pretty good. I still want to go over it with some cotton buds, and the underside I want to do all the reflow work before I resolder all the capacitors. But I'm keen to get my Mauser order in. So what I want to do is I want to smash through these other boards. I was debating if I wanted to bother to recap all the other boards, but the caps aren't that expensive. This is a job that I only really want to do once on this particular TV. So let's get straight into it. We've got the tuner board on this side, and we know that because the tuner's there, bit of a giveaway. We've got the micro computer, microcontroller, microprocessor board, whatever you want to call it, this one with the big tin on it. We will have somewhere, I don't know which boards are which actually, but we will have a teletext board, and we will have this, and we will have that, and all sorts of different bits and pieces. And that's kind of interesting, isn't it? We've also got the board on the back, which I believe is the AV board of some description, but it doesn't always correlate, I've noticed, with B&O, but usually you've got numbers on the board. Like this one says number 14. I noticed the tuner board says, what does it say there? 83, is it? And this one here says board 15 or 32, it seems. This one over here is quite clear, it's 46. So those board numbers correlate with the diagram. The diagram I don't find that intuitive to look at, but that's what they correlate with. So let's declick it. Let's declick a wing. Let's go for the tuner board, because I think that's going to be the easiest by the looks of it. And where are we with the wiring? So we've got, yeah, all of these wires need to be disconnected to get this board out. So we will unclip them from the little clip. You just untwist it and then they just pull out. And then to look at them, we've got a 2-pin, which is keyed, a 4-pin, and how many pins is that one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think. So they can all just pull out. Yes, you can see this, good. And of course they are all keyed, which is really nice. And then we've got just 2 more down here. So we've got a little 2-pin and a, what's that, a 3-pin. And then this just lifts out. So if we have a little look at this, a bit confused why that connector looks pretty grimy, but that is what it is. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 capacitors, and that, I don't, what's that? It's saying L1, so I suppose that's a coil of some description, and then we've got another one of those down there. So a couple of capacitors on this one. It looks like it's the Torx again, which is it a T10? Yeah, I don't have my handle, it's in the other room. So it's 2 T10s to get this board out. And of course, like I was saying, you could have the set-top box board, and I'm assuming it probably would have gone or would go in there, perhaps, because that would be quite close to the cutout that mine doesn't have. And this plate must just pop off. Oh yeah, there you go, you can see you've got 2 clips. There you go. And the plate would just pop off, and you could use the other plate. So, more dust. Lots and lots of dust. So yeah, let me go and get my screwdriver, and I'll pull this board, pull the caps. I'm not going to bore you with that. Document that, get those on the order list, and then we'll come back and look at the rest of the boards. So I'll be back with you in a while. I've now got all the capacitors removed from the tuner board, and that wasn't the most enjoyable job. I need to clean up some of the flux, but this is either a double layer or a triple layer board, and the heat that you needed to try and pull that through was a bit more than I would have liked. So there we go. I did find an interesting silkscreen error. This board is listed as board 83, but it should actually be board 38. And this is what I was saying about these board numbers don't always line up, and they've obviously got that the wrong way round somehow. Right then, guys, I just want to jump in. This is Dave in Edit again. The picture on the right, I didn't intend to show publicly, hence it's a bit of an odd picture. It's just for personal use, really, but anyway. I did say at some point in the video that I wanted to chat about the service manuals and the diagrams and such, and now we need to go through it. I'm actually a little bit annoyed, and I'm trying to be really calm. 2024, new year, new me, all that crap. But this is annoying me now, right? So we have a service manual here, we'll get to that. I have another service manual here, we'll get to that. I'm used to mucking about with BMWs, right? I'm used to BMW TIS, Technical Information Systems, and their TIS documents and their wiring diagrams and all that sort of stuff. And it's so logical. And then you have fan projects like bmwfans.info. And you can go on here, you can bang in what model you've got. Let's say it's a coupe, a 328, I don't know. Right? Well, no, let's leave it undefined. And then let's go browse. And then you go and look for something like where the headlights are. Here we are, headlights. And you can see you've got like the breakdown of the parts. Let's just keep it simple, keep the headlight. Okay, it's one part, you would say. And then you look and you've got all these different part numbers, and you've got the yellow versions, you've got the normal versions, if it's Bosch, if it's Sid KW. But look at the part numbers, right? 6312, and then whatever is specific to the headlight, 6312, 6312. And you look at them and you go, oh look, all of the different headlights, right? All the different generations, different years, different countries. Oh look, they all start the same. There's something logical about their part numbers. And then if you went for a standard headlight and you went on info, oh look, an old part number, and it's still 6312, right? What does it fit? Oh, it fits all these models. Really helpful, right? You look at a Bang & Olufsen part number, and it makes bugger all sense to anybody. Every number is unique. Every number is completely different to the last. I just don't understand how they come up with these part numbers or these diagrams. And I want to show this here now. So this is say for the MX7000 BO4, which is what I have, but it transpires, it looks like this only goes up to one version below what I've got. I've got the 8700, and if we look at this on the tuner page, actually no, it's even worse than that. Oh no, yeah, so I've got 8700, and this only goes up to 7899. So this manual is a little bit older than my TV, which means that it's almost impossible to try and work out what the hell you're doing from it. And then if we have a look at the actual diagrams, so we've got an MX7000 diagram here, and this is trying to display the card cage, and I have to say that it didn't make a lot of sense to me for a long time until I worked it out. And then we've got this one here, which is for the MX4000 6000s, so this one's a little bit older, but the chassis are meant to be the same. And then what's a little bit weird in this particular book is the diagrams are actually from the LX model. If I can get it to go back a page. See how it's the wider one with the speakers on the side? And then if you look at the diagram, it's that style. But if we look at the board numbers here, just look at how ridiculous this is. Board 9, board 9. Come over here, board 9, fair enough. Board 3, board 3. Board 3, fair enough. And then it seems to be, you know, you're on your own. It's whatever somebody decided on the day. You've got board 38, board 1. What have we got here? Oh, it's board 1 or 38. great. Board 15, board 15. Oh, it's now board 32. Right, okay. Board 10, board 10. Oh, apparently it's 46 now. 37 is consistent, but then that's ironic because my TV doesn't have a board 37. I just don't understand what they're doing. And I wanted to put my picture on my card cage up to talk through this. So the bottom board, the power board, is board 4. And it actually has the number 4, silk screened onto it. And here we've got board 4, board 4, board 4. Okay, happy with that. The microcontroller, the, whatever you want to call it, the CPU, that is board 6. And this is where it gets a bit confusing. This is the cage as if it's led down. So this is upside down of what you're seeing here. So you've got like the horseshoe of the boards upside down. Took me a while. Maybe I'm just silly. Board 6, board 6, board 6. So we're happy with that, right? Then we get to the tuner board. Depending on where I put this in the video, depends if you've seen this or not. My tuner board says 83. Now, if we look at this, on this model, it would be either board 1 or board 38. And on this one, it's board 38. On this one, it's board 1. But mine isn't any of that. Mine is board 83. And in the video, I've mentioned, I think they got the silkscreen the wrong way round. Turns out they haven't, and I'll get to that. If we look at this top board up here, it's not very clear, but that's 46. And sure enough, on this diagram, it says 46 on that upper horseshoe area. But on this one, it's board 10, and on this one, it's board 10. I don't have that, right? So that they've revised it. But then something interesting happens. If you go over to this board, notice how mine says board 15 or 32. And on this diagram, it's 32. And on this diagram, it's 15. So this board, I suppose, can be interchanged between the two generations, which I find mildly interesting. And then this board here is the, what is it? It's the decoder board, isn't it? Board 41 on mine. So it's consistent with this, but not with these. Yeah, board 2 there, board 12 there. But why do you have to keep changing the bloody board numbers? Why can't you just put a revision on it or something? And then this is the interesting one. This is the teletext board. So if you go by this diagram, which seems to be the closest to what I have, should be board 37, right? Nope, board 8. Now I cannot find, look at this, 37, 37. Apparently it's always been 37. So why is it's now board 8 on mine? I can't find any reference to this. It just does my head in. And then the big board on the back is board 14. And it's weird. They've just sort of shown it as an arrow to 14 to this line. They could have said board on the back or on reverse, or could have done a 3D, like an isometric view. It just doesn't make sense to me. So let's go back to this tuner board, this 83, which, isn't mentioned anywhere on this diagram. Again, we've got the 6000s, the 4000s, still 38 apparently. This one, apparently it's gone back to 1, who knows. And again, there's no board 8 on any of these diagrams. The only board 8 I can find is on this diagram, and that refers to NICAM, which again, I find it a bit odd that my TV doesn't seem to have a NICAM board, even though I'm pretty sure it has NICAM. And then I started to sort of bang through the manual, and I'm going through, hang on, let me zoom out, going through all the diagrams, and I can't find any reference, can't find anything that looks like this. So then we get down to, we come right down, okay, so now we look at the breakdown of parts, right? And you've got the PCBs, so we've got PCB 4, okay, yeah, happy with that. PCB 6, fair enough. And then when we get to wherever the hell this board is, or should be, what was it, 38, right? Yeah, here we go, 38. And I compared it to photos of my board, right? And I'm looking at capacitors, looking at the capacitor list. Now I got capacitor numbers on here that aren't even on this list. It's saying that there is no capacitor. And I was like, well, how is that possible? Even if they've got the silk screen wrong, how is it that the part number is nothing like my part number? And how is it that the board number is wrong? It just made no sense, right? So I'm struggling, and it's only by chance this morning I decided, just for fun, because I'm sad, let's read the manual backwards, right? So I've gone down to the bottom and I've had a look at this, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is interesting, very nice. And then I just casually looked here and I was like, oh, hang on a minute. PCB83, what? How is that possible? Not mentioned anywhere else in the book, but it is mentioned on this page breakdown. And then I looked at this, PCB83, looked at the capacitor list, and sure enough, the caps I was looking for, it was either C44, 48, that sort of thing. Yeah, it was actually. Those capacitors match the values that are on my board. But guess what? Part number, it's nothing like that part number. So it's a different board again. And it's not like it's sequential. I mean, I don't know if these are 800, 5984. What's this lower one? Okay, so somewhat amazingly, they're sequential. But the part number of my board, it's nothing like that. And I'll just see if I can find that. Hang on. Yeah, so here we go. So here's my board here. You can see it's clearly the tuner board, right? Board 83. Let's have a look at this part number then. What on earth is B6142966? Because that ain't 8005984 5, and it isn't 8005984, is it? So I don't get it. I'm looking at that bloody label there, and I'm seeing 8005. Be interesting to know what that says. But why is it on a sticky label? I don't understand. I don't understand how they make up these numbers and that the diagrams don't relate to this. Why is it that the diagrams don't suggest that there was ever a board 83 to start with? It just, I don't know. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So, rant over, I suppose. Back to the video. And there was also on the back, yeah, on the back here, it says L4. Can you see that? It says L4. It should say C4, because if you flip it over, on this side, it says C4. It's a capacitor. So, yeah, a couple of issues with the silk screen on that board, so just things to be careful of. When you are removing the cap, always check that the polarity on the board matches the polarity on the capacitor. I've been making a check of that on every capacitor, and so far all of the silk screen for the polarity has been correct, so I don't need to note that down. But of course, if yours doesn't, then make sure you note down to put the capacitor in backwards, because they've put it on the silk screen backwards. But anyway, so that's the tuner done. I think I'm now going to hit this little board here, so we will click out the other wing, if I can get it out. There we go. Just drop that one down. And this board seems to have some slightly different screws, a bit meaty actually. I wonder if they're original. But these are, what are these? These are T20. So I'll use the T20 to remove those two screws and hopefully pop that board out and get the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 capacitors off of that board, which seems to be board 46 apparently. And then we'll move on to the next one. That's the caps removed from that board now. I did have a quick little look at it, and just by eye I wonder if the solder on that transistor is a little bit on the thin side. And of course all of the connectors will get reflowed and that'll get dusted and cleaned, defluxed, what have you, so happy with that. So now I want to have a look at the two boards here, and this is where things are starting to get a bit more complicated now, because lots of wires, and when I start disconnecting wires like this one for example is just going to be completely loose, so I just need to be careful to not lose these and obviously get them in the right direction again. This board, some of you may have already noticed, it's got little permanent marker dots on the tops of some of the capacitors, and I think they've been replaced. I think when it was serviced, these were also replaced, just trying to have a squint at the side. The normal B&O caps seem to be this yellow colour from factory. There are a few blue ones. This is a blue one from factory, but generally speaking they're the orange colour, and you can see there's only 2 orange ones on here. But they've even got dots on them as well, so maybe they were checked or something, but whatever. We will have to remove the looms now, so this is where things are going to really start getting fun. So this is a 3-pin cable that goes over to this backboard here, so I'll unplug that. Then behind that we've got a 1, 2, 3, is that a 6-pin, which goes off to the loom. Behind that we've then got a little 2-pin which sits in front of the other multi-pin cable, which is, I think that's 8 pins on that one. And that one goes off to this board at the back here. We have this singular wire here which seems to go to some sort of ground point, which is a spade connector. Then we have this multi cable here, which is sort of grey wires with, I'm guessing that might be audio, like a red and a greyish heat shrink on it. Pull that. And then how are we doing? We've got a cable wrap here, so I will untwist the cable wrap and just pop these wires out from there. We have a, what's that for? A 4-pin there at the back of the board. And then we've got this, like I say, this cable that will be loose now. So that's all of the cables. I'll put that one off to one side, and just remember that the loop is at the closer side for that board. And now we should be able to hopefully pull this away. There's a cable tie holding those wires together. Okay, so I need to unplug this backboard here, which is this multi-pin cable. And then that's now pulled that wing away. And obviously we've got a couple of cables on that backboard, which I'll probably leave connected for the short term, just so I don't lose the orientation on that. Now in terms of getting these boards out, we've got 1, 2, 3 screws there. I think this board will then just come out. And then this other board, this backboard, I'm not too sure about how that comes out yet, so we will work that out. So I'll just have to flick my Torx back to whatever size this was, which was T10, I believe. Okay, so that's that board out. And yeah, I'm just trying to, where's the magnifying glass? Just trying to squint at what brand that is. I think it's the brand that I saw on the neckboard caps. Just got my microscope above me, so I'm just going to have a quick look, see if I can focus on it with that. I'm not getting on very well here. Yeah, Max cap. And then the orange ones, I'm assuming are still the Elna ones, but can't quite see. Yeah, it is. So maybe they were just put back in as good. So we will have a look at that board, and then whilst I'm here I might as well see about getting this out. Yeah, so this plastic is springy, and I wonder if it just sort of springs out, to be quite honest. I don't want to snap that. There we go. Okay, good. That's that coming off of there, so that cage can go in a little bubble bath, just have a little wash. And we've got quite a few caps on here as well, a bit dusty, so I'll have a look at that board, get them off, get those annotated. And we've obviously got a bit of software here for something, which is interesting, which is saying about the model number there. And that seems to be board 13, so I'll look up what that is later. And the bigger board was the board 41. So we'll see how accurate that is. So back with you later. Right then, that took longer than anticipated. This board is decapped. Whatever brand caps are on this board, they were fantastically in tolerance. I'm going to go and look it up later, but really interesting that all the caps on this board, I think, tested really good. So that was kind of interesting. And then this board, which is, I forget what this is now. Board 41, hang on. It's the PAL CCAM NTSC decoder, so it's quite an important board, this one. Tons of caps on it. It's been reworked in the past. Some of the caps had failed again, and unfortunately some of the pads had just taken so much heat from the rework from the first guy and then me and mucking about that the pads have got destroyed. But I will clean up the board, and when we put the new capacitors in, I'll be able to bend over legs and then just solder to the next pad across, or solder to the trace or something like that. So it's not going to be broken in any way. It's just unfortunate that the pads have had enough due to the age and all the rest of it. But yeah, this board was the pain, but at least it's done now. So now the cage is looking pretty bare. We've got this board 8, which is the NICAM board, as far as I understand it. Then we've got the microcontroller, we've got whatever the hell that is, and then the big one on the back, which is it's AV or something, isn't it? Double AV switch, board 14, I think. Does it have a 4? Yeah, it's got 14 on it. Yeah. So that's the boards we seem to have left. So now what we will do is we will lower this down, and I assume this comes out, yeah it does, it comes out just like the other boards, just lifts out. So again, this bit of cage can be washed and cleaned, so that'd be quite nice. And then we have this final assembly, and let's see if, I wonder how easy it is to get anything off of this board. The NICAM board has got 3 surface mount electrolytics, which is interesting because B&O of this age don't usually use surface mount. They should be replaced because they can leak quite easily, but I'm probably going to ignore this board for now because they're surface mount, and I just don't want to get into surface mount components. But whilst it's flat, I will get the scope on it and have a look and see if I can see any leakage around it, but I don't think there is. What the hell was that? Huh. Bit of plastic has obviously broke off over the years somewhere. So this backboard then, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 screws holding it on, and then I'm guessing that will lift off. Of course, the fun part is all of the wires. I'm really dreading the reassembly of this. But there we go. So I need to take this board out, take all these connectors off, and then I also really want to, I probably won't take this board off, but I want to get in it. I'm not sure how easy it's going to be to get in it without taking it out. How is it clipped in? It's just, okay, so it's clipped 1 and 2. Really don't want to snap the clips. Of course the wires are over it, which is going to... there's a cable tie there, isn't there? Or is that just... it's just the wires. I can probably get away with pulling the wires off of this one, so let's do that. Because what I want to do is I want to see what software version this is and back it up, because, you know, potentially mine could be a bit newer than some other ones out there, or mine could be older. And when I get a client seeing that's on a newer software, I might be able to upgrade mine. So that will be an interesting little project, and I just want to see what actually is within this. Will that now just pull out? Yeah. Oh, nice. Okay. Really nice. It's quite clever how it just removes so neatly. But anyway, so this little shield I will pull off to clean. You don't want to bend it, so don't want to distort it. So just bring it off gently. There we go. And what have we got? That will be the software chip there, IC3. And that says, what does that say? That says B&O something part number, and I can just about make out V4.3 there. So I'll take a picture of that, superimpose that, but I can pull that chip and dump that chip, and I've got a copy of the software, so it's well worth doing whilst here. It's nice that somebody's wrote old. What is that about? Old. Or is that 060? Maybe it's 060. I wonder why they would have wrote that. So anyway, we will... let me just find a little brush. We can see there's lots of debris on this end, so I just brush all of that out. You just see it all come out on the table there. And yeah, I'll just give this the once over. Oh joy, there's a little cap in there. Well, let's hope that never fails, because yeah, that's I suppose if that one ever failed, you'd have to snip the legs on it and try and resolder onto the top of them. I wonder what it is. Can't make that out. Let me have a look with the scope. See if I can make it out. Hang on. So it's C80, and it's a max cap, 16 volt. Is that a 10 UF? Yeah, it's a 16 volt. 10 UF capacitor. It looks like somebody may have replaced it. They may have been able to solder it, like I say, just sort of solder it into the pads. Yeah, I think I will hope that that one's okay for now. I don't really want to damage anything in here. But it's just something worth bearing in mind. So there we go. So I think I'm going to round up for the day. It's been a long day. And I will go in, document everything that I've been messing about with so far, and go from there. So sorry, this is a bit of a ramble, a bit boring. I do need to get that board off, and I do need to do all the caps on that, so I think I will show that tomorrow, put all the wires. Okay, I'm going to take the opportunity to try and wrap this video up because I'm pretty exhausted with it as it is. On screen now is the capacitor list of what I've been pulling off of these boards. So we can correct that now. That's meant to be 83. Yay. So I've managed to do the power supply board, the neck board, the tuner board, headphone amplifier board of some description, decoder board, and the sync board. And obviously it's worth doing. These capacitors have fared well. They've fared a lot better than what I imagined they would have. Stuff just 10 years older is definitely leaking. I've taken apart multiple other B&O things and they're leaking. But it seems that for whatever reason the caps in this TV aren't leaking. So don't know why that is, but there we go. So a few things have come out from looking at all of this. One, it became obvious that somebody's obviously worked on this in the past. There were some Phillips caps in there, which were nice to see, but not original. A lot of Elna caps that I know are original. This Max cap, I don't know if that's original or not, to be quite honest with you. But, you know, whatever you have to say about it, in a lot of instances, those had failed. And then I don't know what brand these caps are. I said SG here, but that turns out it was just like a series of the cap. I've asked on some of the Facebook pages and nobody seems to know or care. But whatever brand these caps are, I mean, look at the values. The ESR rating, 0 ohms, 0 ohms, 0.03 ohms. It seems that those capacitors fared incredibly well. Like, they're so intolerant, it's unbelievable. There's no or very little ESR rating. There's literally very little V-loss, so they're not discharging at an unfair rate. They just seem to still be perfectly fine. So I don't know what the story is with that. I'll just pop up quickly the picture of the brand. If anybody knows, please chuck it in the comments because I'm fascinated to know. The other thing I noticed is whoever's replaced caps have, which is why I think this Max cap isn't original, they've chucked in quite a few of these bipolar caps, which mean that they don't have polarity, so there is no negative or positive side. And they've all failed. It seems to be wherever there's a bipolar, it's failed. But in the service manual, I don't see it suggesting that they were bipolar to start with. I'll put bipolar back in just in case the manual is wrong in some way. But I found that interesting as well. So anyway, as we have a look at the power board, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 failures on that board. And the way I deem failure is obviously if it's not within its 20% tolerance, then it will fail. So if that is much lower than that, which I don't think was no, it wasn't. What upset me here was the ESR rating is too high. When you look up the tolerance of what is and isn't acceptable, that was too high. And then with this one, look at the V-loss, 5.6%. It's dying, so that's a fail. And some of this is, like I say, a manual approach, just running through it and seeing if anything looks a bit odd. I think how that one's crept through, I don't know really. It's 5.1 ohms. Seems a bit high, but what is it? That might be just in spec. I'll double check that. But yeah, generally speaking, the caps have fared a lot better than I first thought. But also, it's worthwhile because there have been failures. And of course, we saw that reefer cap. Annoyingly, I haven't put the good picture up of that. I'll put the picture up now, but the reefer cap has, it's got a lot of cracking in it, so it's ready to explode any day now. And it could. On first power up, apparently when they crack, they let moisture in, and then when you go to plug it in, it goes bang. So probably best I didn't plug it in, having seen that now. As you can see, I've started to look at replacements at Mauser. I'm going to try and focus on Rubicon. Reefer got bought out by Kemet, so that's a like-for-like replacement. and then I need to do all these boards and try and get this order placed. I'm really dragging my heels on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up the video here, and I'm going to say, if you've made it this far, my God, thank you for watching. I know it's been tedious. It's been tedious to edit. And we'll call this part 1. I will go ahead and finish up this spreadsheet and get that ordered, and then when they come in, we'll do all the rework, we'll do all the tidy up, we'll do all the replacement capacitors, try and get it back together, try and get it plugged in, and we'll call that part 2 and see how we get on. All right. So thank you everybody for your time. Any constructive feedback is always welcome. I know I'm boring, but hopefully not boring enough, and see you again soon. Cheers.